The world is watching Tennessee. The world is watching Tennessee. Because what is happening here today is a farce of democracy. What is happening here today is a situation in which the jury has already publicly announced the verdict. Just yesterday, the House Speaker took to national news to condemn us and call for expulsion before any evidence was presented, before any trial happened. And so what we see today is just a spectacle. What we see today is a lynch mob assembled to not lynch me, but our democratic process. But it will not stand, because no lie can live forever.
That's Representative Justin Jones talking about the situation that they're looking at, which is pretty obvious. They're looking to kick out these 3 Democrats, at least to expel them as of Thursday, after they went to the floor and protested and actually decided to speak as their mics are being cut, which we'll get to more of. What they're upset about is that, oh, breaking news, they have actually been now expelled. They went ahead through with the vote. So that has actually happened now. I'm seeing it come across our wires. You know, we're right on the cusp of everything that's happened with the news. And as Jones was pointing out there, the world's watching, and we'll see what the response will be. This is the scene as they arrived this morning, because look, folks knew, and as he mentioned, they're watching, most importantly, the constituents. Let's watch. So I guess they figured they could ignore all that's happening, and also the basis behind all this, and actually think it's just going to move on. And you know what? Maybe they're right. There's been plenty of things that folks from these state levels have been doing and then just skirt by. But Justin Jones was not done, though. He was speaking through a lot of this today. They were also talking about bills when it comes to school safety that they were debating over throughout the day, which I caught a little bit of earlier. But as they talked about building up to this vote as far as kicking these 3 out, he also mentioned more of those going on with their decision.
But most particularly, I was standing for those young people. Those young people, many of whom come from my district, many of whom can't even vote yet, many of whom are disenfranchised, but all of whom are terrified by the continued trend of mass shootings plaguing our state and plaguing this nation. And so that is why I walked up to the well. I walked up to the well because you were pushing my people back. We brought a megaphone because you cut our people off, and you cut their representatives off from the microphone, time after time after time after time after time again. And there comes a time where people get sick and tired of being sick and tired.
It apparently was falling along deaf ears, as they wanted nothing to do with this, Jackson. He had other things he was pointing about, previous instances of when folks have been kicked out for things much more serious than going in and speaking after they've been silenced because their constituents want some kind of action to be taken. But still, your first thoughts on what's been going on today?
Well, I mean, you know, it's not like it's some type of open secret. It's just general knowledge that the United States has incredibly unnecessary gun violence issues. And, you know, the fact that people are being expelled from the legislative process and a few other things that we'll talk about in a minute in terms of what was passed, goes beyond just corruption, but also shows that the people on these seats who make these decisions have a general disinterest in the issue. Like, it's not something that they care about beyond just them getting paid to pass different types of legislation and to continuously turn a blind eye. But as he pointed out, you know, there does come a time when people get sick and tired of being sick and tired. And if there's total faith lost that anything's going to be done about gun violence, because as we've talked about many times, the moves that could be made just involve small things like raising the minimum age that people could get, enhancing how hard we look at people's past and their mental health, if they should be able to get weapons. So we're not really discussing anything that's really difficult to understand, or that would be really, really difficult to put into action. So again, there's just general disinterest for people who sit in these seats, and we simply have to replace them by any means necessary.
So one of the ironic parts about this whole day was, as I mentioned earlier, as they started the whole session, they were debating yet another one of these bills about gun safety, but not the gun safety. They said looking to protect kids in schools. And so many of the Republicans in this chamber were talking about reinforcement of doors and one exits and all the things that we've heard from national Republicans, because those are just kicking cans down the road, and absolutely nothing about how those things be paid for, where they're taking that money from, who they're taking it from to get to their final non-solution of all of these fortifications to turn our schools into prisons. Every one of them in the country, I guess. But still, then at the back end, debating with these same folks yet again, then kicking them out. They already knew that they didn't have to talk to them much more because it was a pre-set decision that they were already going through. Let's let Jones speak through one more aspect of what is it's happened historically with some of the folks that were kicked out, and then again, think about the reasons why these three have been expelled.
Let's talk about expulsion. For years, one of your colleagues who was an admitted child molester sat in this chamber. No expulsion. One member sits in this chamber who was found guilty of domestic violence. No expulsion. We had a former speaker sit in this chamber who is now under federal investigation. No expulsion. We have a member still under federal investigation. No expulsion. We had a member pee in another member's chair in this chamber. No expulsion. In fact, they're in leadership. What you're really showing for the world is holding up a mirror to a state that is going back to some dark, dark roots. A state in which the Ku Klux Klan was founded is now attempting another power grab by silencing the two youngest Black representatives and one of the only women, Democratic women in this body. That's what this is about.
As you asked during that, Jackson, what is going on in Tennessee?
Right. That's why I said, I'm like, huh? Like, think about just the childish, petty nature of that. Like, I'm gonna pee on your seat. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, huh? But again, like you pointed out, they still on that bench. They still sitting there chilling. So this obviously, I mean, it's just like the corruption is so deep. It's just like, yeah, just get them out of here because they're trying to pass a bill to do a little something about it. You know, because again, like the thought that we could somehow get rid of like all the guns in the United States is completely absurd and literally impossible. That's not happening. So these people's fears are completely irrational.
It's like they're already at the point where, again, like you said, it's be hard for us to actually eradicate all guns, but they still say that's what the plan always is, ignoring any kinds of things that have been done that have prevented some of these shootings, which, by the way, we're talking about schools. What's their plan for malls, shopping centers, people's walks down the street, on buses, wherever hell it is that anyone can get shot, because that's everywhere, because everyone's got a gun in their hand. What's the plan there? They don't have one because they don't give a damn. Let's keep it real. But the next thing that is going to happen, as we've seen all those folks that were in the balconies and out in front of the Capitol, and also protesting from inside the halls, yo, those people vote. And it's about to be about that point where they're going to be wondering why they keep losing in the years to come. Only problem is we'll see what's left once those years come.